I want to be honest with you about something before I start telling you this story, which is that when Stephen A. Smith said the words that changed everything this morning, the part of me that has been watching First Take for years had a specific immediate reaction that I am not proud of, and that turned out to be completely wrong. I thought he was performing. I thought the, you know what, let's settle this right now, get Leon Rose on the phone was the theatrical version of impatience that he deploys when a segment has hit a specific energy level and he needs a reset device. I have watched him use that device before. The feigned escalation, the dramatic gesture toward the production team, the implication that something extraordinary is about to happen, followed by a pivot back to normal argumentation. I thought this was that. I was wrong. Because the production team dialed, and Leon Rose, the president of basketball operations for the New York Knicks, answered his phone, and the morning changed completely. Hey, what's up everyone? Real quick before we get into everything, that like button is literally what determines if this reaches hundreds or thousands of fans. Takes 1 second, but makes a huge impact on the channel's growth. Just smash that like button right now. It's the easiest thing you can do, but honestly, the biggest way to support this content. Every single like pushes this further, so hit it now. Let me give you the 20 minutes first, because the debate that preceded the call was genuinely excellent, and I want to honor it before the call overshadowed it the way calls of that kind inevitably do. The topic had been Jabari Smith Jr. and the New York Knicks, specifically whether the reports connecting the Houston Rockets stretch 4 to New York represented real, advanced organizational level interest or the kind of exploratory market awareness that every front office engages in without any specific deal taking shape. Stephen A. had been arguing real and advanced. Shannon had been arguing exploratory at best. They had been going around this gap for 20 full minutes when the threshold was crossed. Stephen A. His case for the acquisition had been built with specific technical precision that I thought was the best sustained analytical argument he had made in several weeks of shows. He talked about the Knicks' offensive structure and its specific vulnerabilities, the way defenses had learned to shade heavily toward Jalen Brunson because the players around him had not consistently provided the shooting threat that would have forced defenses to choose between stopping Brunson and stopping the three-point line. He said the Knicks had been too easy to defend in half-court situations because opposing teams could pack the paint against Brunson drives without meaningfully surrendering open threes, and that this problem had shown up most clearly in the moments of playoff games where opponents had their best defensive personnel on the floor and could make specific adjustments without paying a cost. He said Jabari Smith was the specific answer to this specific problem. A stretch 4 who shot genuine volume from 3 at a high percentage, whose presence at the 4 position forced defenses to extend their big and created the interior lanes that Brunson's driving game required to be maximally effective. He then made the defensive argument, which I thought was the strongest part of his case. He said the Knicks under their current identity valued defensive toughness, that their best moments had been defined by physical defense, contested rebounding, and the kind of positional discipline that punished opposing offenses for taking bad shots. He said Jabari Smith embodied all of those qualities in a single player, a defender who could guard guards in space, wings at the elbow, and fours in the post, whose switching ability was genuine rather than nominal, whose defensive IQ was high enough to be deployed in the complicated defensive schemes that playoff basketball required. He said adding Smith did not just make the offense better, it made the defense better. It made both better simultaneously. And the players who make both sides of the floor better simultaneously were the most valuable players in professional basketball, and they were almost never available at 22 years old on a contract that still had meaningful team control remaining. Shannon's counter had been the one he made all morning on every player-specific discussion: cost and asset allocation. He said the Knicks were not a franchise with unlimited draft capital to spend. He said Leon Rose had been building carefully, accumulating pieces without sacrificing the future, and that a trade for Smith at the price Houston would demand represented a deviation from that approach that Rose had been disciplined about maintaining. He said the reports had the quality of market testing rather than serious negotiation, and that the difference between those two things mattered more than the reporting was suggesting. Stephen A. said his sources suggested it was past market testing. Shannon said the cost was still prohibitive. They went around it for 20 minutes, and Stephen A. lost patience. When Leon Rose answered the phone, his voice had the quality that voices have when they are on a call they chose to take, rather than a call they were required to take. Present but not fully engaged, the voice of a man who was willing to spend a few minutes on a conversation he did not expect to be anything unusual. He said Stephen A's name with the comfortable recognition of a professional relationship. He waited to hear what the call was about. Stephen A said, "Leon, I need to ask you directly about Jabari Smith Jr. We have multiple reports suggesting real Knicks interest. I need to know if that is accurate." The pause that followed was 5 seconds. The 5-second pause. The longest pause of any of the 3 calls this morning, and the pause that contained the most information precisely because of its length. 5 seconds is the pause of a man who has been asked something specific about something real, and who is working out how much to say about the real thing without saying the thing directly. He said, "Stephen A, you know I can't comment on discussions that may be ongoing." He paused again briefly. And then, what I can say is that this organization is committed to doing whatever it takes to put a championship caliber team on the floor, and we are exploring every possibility that moves us toward that goal. Shannon said, "That's a yes." He said it with the absolute unhedged conviction of a man who has been reading front office language for long enough to know exactly what that specific formulation means. Rose said, "Shannon, and then the catch. The sentence stopped. And then quietly, "Am I on air right now?" Molly said, "Yes, Leon, I'm so sorry. This is on us completely." The line went dead. The studio erupted. Every word of what Leon Rose said deserves careful parsing, because the language was doing significant work even as it was trying to reveal as little as possible. When Rose said discussions that may be ongoing, he made a specific and revealing choice. The standard executive formulation for a situation where no discussions exist is "I can't comment on player transactions in general," or "we don't discuss players on other teams' rosters." The phrase "may be ongoing" is used when the discussions are actually ongoing and the executive needs language that is technically accurate without being explicitly confirmatory. If there were genuinely no discussions, the correct and simple response was, "There are no discussions to comment on." Rose did not give that response. He gave the response of a man who needed to acknowledge the possible existence of a thing without describing it. The possible existence of the discussions was the thing he was acknowledging. The discussions exist. The second sentence, "We are exploring every possibility that moves us toward that goal," is even more specific in its implications. Every possibility is not a generic phrase in this context. It is a response to a question about a specific player. In that context, every possibility includes the possibility that was just named. Rose was confirming that the possibility called Jabari Smith Jr. was among those being explored. He was doing it in the most diplomatic language available. But the language was accurate, and the accuracy was the confirmation. Shannon decoded it immediately. The decoding was correct. Let me now walk through the basketball argument, because Jabari Smith to the Knicks is a genuinely compelling story on its own merits that deserves serious analysis. The Knicks' core identity under their current construction is built around defensive toughness and half-court offensive efficiency anchored by Brunson. The thing that has limited their ceiling in recent playoff runs has been the offensive ceiling. The specific inability to sustain points per possession efficiency when defenses have made their best adjustments, and the margins are thin. Stephen A was right about this. The solution is not a second ball handler who competes with Brunson for creation opportunities. The solution is a player who creates offensive value without requiring the ball, and who does it from a position on the floor that the defense cannot leave unguarded. Jabari Smith is that player. At 22, averaging approximately 16 points and 7 rebounds on a Rockets team that uses him as a secondary option, his three-point shooting represents a genuine, scalable offensive threat. The percentage in the high 30s on volume means defenses must allocate coverage to him that they cannot simultaneously allocate to Brunson. Every time Smith is on the floor, and a defense has to choose between containing Brunson's drive and closing out on Smith's three, they are in a losing situation. Brunson finds Smith on the drive and kick, Smith converts, and the defense has been punished for the correct defensive decision. That is the specific mechanical advantage of pairing Brunson with a shooting four, and it is why the Knicks' offseason has reportedly been focused on exactly this player type. The defensive fit aligns with everything the Knicks' program has been built around. The ability to switch screens, to stay with a guard when a screen is set, to stay with a wing after a switch, to stay with a four in the post without giving up size, is the exact defensive quality that the Knicks scheme requires from their front court. Jabari brings this quality at a level that is rare in the current league. His combination of length, athleticism, and defensive IQ creates the positional flexibility that modern playoff defense demands. He is not just adequate at multiple positions, he is genuinely good at them, and the specific nature of his defensive goodness, the anticipation, the communication, the willingness to sacrifice body position to stay in front of a guard, aligns with the defensive culture the Knicks have built. The age and contract dimensions make this the kind of acquisition that represents genuine organizational building rather than short-term patchwork. Smith at 22 on a 5-year deal is a piece you build with rather than a piece you borrow. He will be 27 at the end of that contract, still in his prime, having developed through 5 years in a system that will make him better and in a market that will shape his professional identity. This is not the kind of player the Knicks are renting for a playoff run. This is the kind of player they are building a championship window around. Stephen A. made all of these points after the call ended, as the eruption organized itself into something analytical. Shannon acknowledged the language had said what it said. Molly apologized to Leon Rose live on air and again off air, and the studio went to commercial with the specific electricity that only appears when a Tuesday morning has produced something that will be talked about long after the basketball season it occurred and has become history.